Hello everybody. Thank you for coming in such enormous numbers. It's tremendous to see so many people here today. The running order will be the same as usual, but I know this, some of you, this is your first visit to the lecture series, so Billy and I will chat for about 45 minutes, depending on how things go, and then I'll be handing it over to yourselves for a Q&A session, so you get to interview the great man. So we'll kick off. Billy, normally I don't write things down, but your record of plaudits is so lengthy that I had to. I couldn't remember, and I certainly couldn't get the order right. I probably still haven't. But you won your first boxing title aged 14. You spent 10 years between the ages of 19 and 29 representing Ireland. You were at the Seoul Olympics in 1988, aged about 24, if my maths are correct. You won 7 Irish senior titles. You competed in the 1982 European Juniors and graduated onto the European Seniors the following year in Bulgaria. You boxed in 2 World Seniors in Russia and Australia, and you fought across 3 weight divisions. Is that about right?
Fair enough.
That's pretty good.
That's average enough.
Also, I think you're the first Wexford man that I've interviewed as part of the lecture series, so that's pretty good. But before we get to boxing, I want to look at some of your other sporting endeavours, because you're a bit of an all-rounder, you're not just a boxer. You were captain of the Wexford minor team in the All-Ireland finals in 1981, is that right?
Leinster.
Leinster, okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I played a lot of sports, as all kids should do. My 4 major sports were soccer, hurling, football, Gaelic football, and boxing. And the reason why I chose those 4 was because they were cheap. My parents couldn't afford to send me to anything else. So I played all of those, and then by the time I was 14, I was playing inter-county hurling, football, soccer, and I won my first Irish boxing title. And by the time I was minor then, as we played the Leinster Hurling final.
Who did you play against?
Our good neighbours, Kilkenny. Anyone here from Kilkenny? And it probably made up my mind in some ways what direction I was going to go in sport. We were 5 points up with 6 minutes to go, and Kilkenny came back and beat us by a point. And I threw my hurl down that day in Croke Park, and I said, fuck this. I didn't want to rely on 14 other guys, and I knew I wasn't going to go to the Olympics playing hurling or football, so I might channel my energies toward boxing then.
We'll have less of the triumphalism from Kilkenny, by the way, as the talk continues. What attracted you to boxing in the first place? Why boxing?
I think at 7 years of age, when I started school in the Christian Brothers, being a little bit robust in the schoolyard, the teachers brought me in, and on the schoolyard, and it still is to this day, there's a boxing club in the Christian Brothers school in Wexford town, and it's still there. And they put me in it, and I just took to it like a water to the duck. And it was that individual piece, you know, you're on your own, you didn't have to rely on anybody else. If you were going to do the hard work, you were going to get the rewards. And I just fell in love with it, and I felt I had a knack for it, and I've been there ever since.
I had a brief sojourn in the CBS Boxing Club myself, and discovered that I did not enjoy being hit in the head. I obviously wasn't very good, because I know the idea is not to get hit in the head. That didn't act obviously as something that perturbed you.
Well, I didn't like getting hit in the head either. Yeah. I think there's too many to do, but I liked hitting other people in the head. And I found out then that I wasn't too bad at it. I was better. I hit more people in the head than they hit me.
That's kind of the key to being a successful boxer, isn't it? Yeah.
It helps. Yeah.
Those early experiences of coaching must have been quite profound for you. Tell me a little bit about your early coaches.
Yeah, my coach, I always call him my coach. It was a neighbour of mine, Eddie Byrne was his name, and his son was the same age as me, and we boxed together. He was a very talented guy. But at 7 years of age, he would have coached me up till I went to the Olympic Games, you know, and he was a great guy. He was more like a father to me, and even though I had a good family background and good parents, what have you, but he was everything to me, you know. He brought me everywhere, a funny character. Really, some of the ethoses that he would have had, the philosophies around coaching, I carry him to the team that we have today.
For example?
About fun, laughter, enjoyment. We have great crack around the team, slagging, great banter. When we get into our business, we're very serious, but outside of that, it's just a ball of fun. And he's a comedian. This guy was a comedian, you know. They used to have a band, I don't know if you heard of them, the Three Amigos. You know,
oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, Eddie was on that band.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, and Joe Byrne was a comedian, Joe,
Yes,
his
indeed,
brother.
I
So
know
they were
Joe.
very funny people, you know. And having that enjoyment around you, because sport is about enjoyment of what we do, you know. And I carried that on to with the national team.
Would these guys have had any training? Would they have been going off on coaching seminars and reading books?
Well,
of
Eddie
psychology?
did. Eddie was way ahead of his time.
Right.
At 14 years of age, there was a Russian coach came and he was in Coleraine for a week with him, and he brought back the skills and talents, the skills that they were teaching. And I can remember when I went on to the national team for the Olympic Games, Nicolas Cruz Hernandez, the Cuban coach, was overtraining us, and I was the only one who understood the techniques that he was teaching, because my coach, as when I was a 14-year-old, he was teaching me this, so he was well ahead of his time, and nobody in the country was still doing it. You know, I said.
So you were exposed to a lot of
Yeah.
really important stuff from
Yeah.
early on. Back when you were starting out, who would the boxers have been that you looked up to?
I suppose in the professional games, you're looking at Muhammad Ali was obviously the man.
What was it about him that inspired
He's
you?
just his charisma, his style. He was, you know, he called himself the greatest, but you know he was the greatest. You know, without doubt, the greatest showman ever. And then Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Hitman Hearns. That era, I would have grown up with that era. You know.
So you would have been looking at people like that. I mean, you don't hear so much talk about boxing styles as you used to. Ali was a great outfighter. You know, he tried to keep a bit of a distance,
long distance.
you know. I mean, did that style influence your own boxing?
Yeah, the skill of him, his skill, but my style of boxing was different.
What was your style?
I was more of a fighter. You know by my face.
Brawler, yeah.
You know by my face. You know, a fighter, I had a punch, I could punch hard. If I needed to get close to somebody to hurt him. Whereas he just picked points and moved. He was constantly on the move, you know, so he was a different style to me, but I loved watching him, you know.
I mean, when you, at that stage, when you were learning and you sat down to look at a boxing match, were there particular things that you were looking out for, things that you were kind of, is he going to do this or is he going to do that? Were the points that you were focusing on?
Well, you would see what happens in the fight, and there's things, the brilliance that guys would show, and what you do the next day you get down to the gym, you're practicing these things, you're trying to, you know, evolve and trying to get better yourself, you know. So there wasn't anything in particular I was looking for, but I just looked to see what was going to happen, how it was going to play out, and what type of tactics they were going to use. You know.
When did you realise that you wanted to be a full-time boxer?
I don't know, really. Did I realise it? I don't know. It maybe just happened. In the time, there was no funding, so I had to work and train in the morning and go to work and then train in the evening to try and compete with the best in the world. And so we didn't have a really good system around us, you know, even though we had lots of talent. And then the progression of that was, you know, I worked for myself. I spent a year and a half in Waterford here. I was in Anco, as it was called then, and stayed in Lismore Lawns for a year. And then I came back to do my senior trades exams in the college, WIT, and I would have spent 3 months living in Lisduggan, 3 months in Ballybeg, and I'm still alive. So I know Waterford pretty well. So I won 2 Irish boxing titles while I was here. One with St. Paul's, and the other one was with my intermediate title I won. I was trained up in St. Saviour's with Bart Simpson, the real Bart Simpson. It was from Waterford.
So you made that realisation. I mean, you said that you were working for yourself. I mean, as a young guy coming up, I mean, a teenager who wants to do all the things that other teenagers do, how much discipline did you have to apply at that stage, and who was encouraging you to do that?
Well, boxing is all about discipline, you know, discipline yourself. But, you know, if you don't discipline yourself, the one that's going to find out, and the hard way, is yourself. So you got to be I was always really very, very fit. And I worked really hard on having the engine and stuff because when you get inside those ropes, you know, one of our boxers, Ray Moylet, maybe somebody don't know him, but he was world youth champion. He was European senior champion in 2011. He's from Mayo. He always says to me, the only thing I know, Billy, is when the bell goes, the coach walks away from the ring. So he's more or less saying, I'm in there on my own after that. You know, so you're on your own when you're in there. You look at it, we're there to help you and come back between the round. We try and help you again. And but at the end of the day, you're on your own. So you've got to be prepared. And if you don't do that preparation, that affects everything. Your confidence, your belief, your psychology going into the ring. So I always prepared meticulously, you know, and that would have helped me along the way. I suppose I always felt that I was going to progress. I never saw myself away from the game. Even when I retired, I just went back in coaching the kids.
Yeah.
Because I loved the game that much. I knew that at a stage where I didn't have it anymore. I just wanted to give something back.
So it was something that you were going to be doing whether or not you were doing it on a full-time basis?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. You know, 10 years ago yesterday, I got a job in the head coach of the Irish boxing team, and I haven't worked since. I got a job at my hobby, and you never work again. So that's what it feels like.
Talk to me about the Olympics and what it has meant to you, because you've had a long relationship with the Olympics. Talk to me about the first time you went.
Well, I suppose as a kid, you know, your boyhood dream for me was to go to the Olympic Games, and I got left off the team for 1984 Olympic Games. I was gutted. I would have had my 21st birthday in Los Angeles, imagine that. And
why do you think you got left off?
Well, I won the national championships that year. I was senior champion.
I was just going to say you were the obvious person to go.
Yeah, and I had the second best record of the team. The guy that had a better record, I had knocked him out. He was way above me at the stage, and I was a country boy. I was from Wexford, and in the corridors of power, I didn't have any political vote.
Right.
And I was left off the team, and I was sickened. And I went back hurling and football that year in my clubs, and we won the senior football championship, and we got beaten after replaying the senior hurling championship. So I made some sort of some decent impact on me. But so eventually to get there 4 years later, it's a long time in sport, and to stick at it, to eventually get there and stand on the middle of the track in Seoul in Korea and see that flame be lit, was the greatest moment of my life.
Just talk to me about just the sheer experience. I mean, the Olympic Village. We hear about the Olympic Village, and everyone has an idea in their head of what that's actually like. But what is it actually like?
It's really, the best way to describe it is like Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
You know, you got every size. You know, you got that size, this size, that size, and that's only the Russian female team. You know, everybody in there thinks you're a superstar. Everybody in there is beautiful. Everything in there is free, even the condoms. So it's the 10,000 of the best athletes in the world every 4 years. They meet and they congregate every 4 years, and the buzz and the atmosphere in there is fantastic.
But to be included among them, you are among the best athletes in the world. I mean, that must be an incredible buzz.
Absolute feeling, and you're walking, queuing up for food. In my time, you would have had Gabriella Sabatini, Carl Lewis, those guys, Daley Thompson, all the top stars, and you're queuing up for food, these guys, and having a crack with them. And the last games, Paddy Barnes is running against Usain Bolt. Having a bit of crack with him, So it's amazing buzz, and everybody's in great form, and it's a difficult place to come back from. The downside of it is coming down off the mountain.
Speaking of which,
off the mountain.
I had to write this guy's name down as well. Song Kyung-sup.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me about Song Kyung-sup.
He reminded me. People won't know who this is, but I'm going to start crying now in a second. This is the guy I fought who beat me in Korea. And I still have the scars. He cut me there and he cut me there. And 6 months previous to that, at the pre-Olympics, which were in Seoul as well, I knocked him out.
So you knocked this guy out?
And then I go to the games. It's a funny thing. I was in the parade, the opening ceremony, and the last team to come in always is the host nation.
The home team. And
there was 586 Korean athletes parading through. And no disrespect to anybody, but if you see one Korean, you've seen them all. To me, I don't want to sound too bad, but to me they all look very, very similar. Now I only saw this guy for a couple of minutes when I fought him, and he had a helmet on him, right? I knocked him dead, and this crowd came in. I'm watching. I said, "That's him." I can't believe it.
Did he have a big black eye?
No. And I said, "He's still on the team. This guy must be good." Because I flattened him. The referee didn't even count. He just went out.
Yeah.
Got the stretcher in, out the ring, And I'm saying, he must be good, he's still on the team. The next day, the draw, I drew him. I drew him in the draw. And they ended up cutting me. There was a clash of heads, and I stopped, and my dream was over.
How did that feel?
Wasn't good. Still not good. It took me a long time to get over it.
Yeah.
Because all your dreams, and I went there to win. I didn't go there to take part, and I think I think for some reasons the success that we've had now, I think this has helped. That has helped us have the success we have now, because it left me with an awful wound. I didn't want the rest of the team to have the same feeling. I regrets that I had come out of the games. So thankfully we hadn't had too many of them.
What did you do when you came home?
I cried for a week. First of all, my mother, at that time we didn't have mobile phones, text messages or emails, so we got a telegram. A pigeon flew in with it. We got a telegram and from my mother to say, "Billy, please ring home." A week later, I hadn't rang home.
She must have
I was
been
ashamed.
Very, very worried.
Yeah, I was very ashamed of.
Yeah.
At the time, I was the only one from Wexford to ever go to the Olympic Games. So there was a lot of expectation, and
Yeah.
and the people at Wexford had done a hell of a lot of fundraising, and I just, I felt I had let everybody down. My family, my county, my country. I was distraught over it.
How'd you come back from it?
Yeah, I came back from it not too good for a long time. It took me 17 years to really get over it.
Really?
Yeah. Every time I spoke about it, I cried. I can speak about it now. I'm nearly crying, but I'm not crying. Right?
Yeah.
So it had a big major impact on me, and I hope it served me in a different way to.
The training that you did for Seoul, the coaching you got. Again, I wrote this down because I couldn't believe it, and I had a bit of paper, so I figured I might as well keep writing. You and the guys, including Michael Carruth, went for conditioning training. You went to the Ring of Kerry, where you stayed in a B&B and trained in the ballroom. Things have changed a bit since
small
then,
piece. Yeah,
haven't
I think
they?
it was again. We went to a place called Castle Cove. It's between Sneem and Carradaniel. Beautiful
Is
place.
it very like Korea?
Yeah, it's very similar. The climate, everything. The 9-hour time difference was 80% humidity. It was a joke, really. And we run our own train in this little ballroom, And we used to run on Carradaniel Beach at the back of Daniel O'Connell's house at 5:30 every morning.
Yeah.
So that was a bit nice thing to have a bit of history. But apart from
Other
that,
than
it
that-
prepared us in no way from where we were going.
Yeah.
No climatization.
I mean, can you remember getting off the plane and that
The
heat
Koreans,
hitting you?
that heat hitting you. And, when you went outside the door in Korea, you had to put a coat on you. Yeah, but look, it was experience again. It serves us for what we're doing now.
In 2006, the PPIA rated boxing as the most difficult sport in the world in terms of the impact psychologically, physically, emotionally on the individual, and the types of skills that need to be developed and evolved to be able to compete at international level. And it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at footage, I was looking last night at footage of two guys in a title fight in 1911 and the style of boxing, and then compared to what happens today. How do you keep up with all of those changes?
Well, the fuel for sustainable success is having a continuous improvement mindset. So I know what we did in London, which is not that long ago, it's only in August, will not be good enough next May when we fight at the European Championships in Minsk. So we've got to continuously improve. Engines are getting better, coordination, people are getting better all the time. Tactics and techniques are improving all the time. Excuse me. So we've got to keep improving. We can't stand still. I watched Kelly Taylor last week. I did some pad work with her, and she's improved from London. She's continuously striving, and that's what makes her so good. And that's why this team has been so successful. We won't rest on our laurels. We don't look back. We look back to learn from what we've done, but we're continuously trying to get better.
If you're looking right now at the ground zero for boxing in the world, the people that are doing it the best, who are you looking at?
Thankfully, we're up there with a lot of them. you know, in Beijing, we finished in 12th position in the medal table. So we beat the 3 games. So in Athens, nowhere. We had nearly become the dodo of boxing, you know, the boxing world, the extinct bird of boxing. We only had 1 boxer in the 2000 games and 1 boxer in the 2004 games. So we turned this around. In the last 4 years, we've won 7 Olympic medals, which is, in the state, have won 28 medals in the history of the state in all sports. So we've won a quarter in 4 years. So to turn that around from where we were at, it's an amazing feat. But if we're looking at the best in the world, it would be in Russia, Ukraine, Cuba, and Great Britain are back up there now, and we're next.
Okay.
So we're very, very close to it. I came out of games sort of disappointed. John Evan was good enough to win the goal. He didn't do it on the day, but he's better than Luke Campbell. Paddy Barnes should have been in the final. That would have put us in the 2nd place behind Britain.
That would have been something.
So the host nation, the last 2 games, the host nation has finished number 1, China and Britain. So they do have an advantage. So we set a task for ourselves, a challenge for ourselves and the support staff and the whole team, heading to Rio. How do we get from 5 to 1? So that's our drive, that's our mission going to Rio.
That's your goal. You were talking there about the fact that yesterday it was 10 years since you got the job of your dreams, so to speak. When you got the call from Nicholas Cruz to come up and act initially as his assistant, wasn't it? You were.
That was in 2004, yeah.
You were
2000.
You were driving a milk float, wasn't it? Yeah. And you got someone else to look after that for a while while you went up and helped out. This is before all of the developments that we've been talking about, before high performance, before all of that. And you really had to kind of develop your method and your approach from the ground up. Talk to me about that. What were you thinking of? What was the picture in your head of where you wanted to be?
I suppose when we started the programme, we had to look at, you know, what the best in the world were doing. And to compete with them, we had to be training like them, you know. And we were training at weekends at this stage, when the boys were off for weekends, and you know, we had to make a commitment, you know, and decide we're going to be full-time training. We needed to be full-time training. So, and at the time we had no money, and I remember it was £40 a night to stay in the B&B. And we had 10 lads, and it was 400 quid a night, and we didn't have the money. So we decided, you know, this is what we needed to do. So we all went down, and we bought blow-up beds and slept on the gym floor in the National Stadium for weeks and weeks on end.
The insurance covered that.
Yeah, nobody knew about it. And that's how we started.
Yeah.
Very humble beginnings. We went to a changing room then, and then we did a bit of a dormitory upstairs, and put bunk beds into it. That's how it started. So the vision was obviously to be on world podiums, to consistently stand on world podiums, but the road to getting there was going to be difficult.
And over lunch we were chatting quite a bit about the psychology of boxing. You've already pointed out the fact that once you step into the ring, you're in there on your own. But I mean, the psychology is much more than just those however many minutes you're in the ring. It's the path that leads you there. I mean, obviously you had an understanding of that as someone who had been a boxer, but how did you switch that around to coaching? You know, where does your psychology of coaching come from? Well,
obviously then I learned from my own my experiences of going into the ring and knowing what it was like at the highest level, to be able to, you know, feed into the guys what they're going through. And, you know, it's normal what they're going through. And then we had a brilliant psychologist work with us, Jerry Hussey, and we set up a system around the team, and you know, athletes and human beings work around routines, and we all developed, all the boys developed their own routine, and I know the routines inside out, so we try and stick to our routines constantly, and trying to get the best performance out of each other. You know, we constantly speak about, we don't look at outcomes, we don't look at the winning piece, we look at the process, which is performing. So if we can get the performance right, you know, the outcomes will look after itself.
So each athlete has an individual plan, basically. Yeah.
And we focus internally quite a bit. We focus on ourselves, being the best that we can be. If the guy turns up in the other corner like King Kong, so be it. At least we're going to be the best that you know, I'm going to be the best Billy that I can be. And once we give our best performance, then please God, the outcome will look after itself, and that's really where we focus.
The you know, a lot of people look at boxing, and even though obviously there is a science to it and there's great craft that goes behind it, but they just see two guys in the ring knocking the head off each other. When you get into that ring and you're facing this guy across the other side who may look like King Kong or may not, you know, what kind of headspace do you need to be in? Do you need to be angry with this guy? Do you need to dislike this guy? Do you need to respect the guy? What you know? What do you imprint on?
Well, our guys, again, we're focused internally on ourselves. You know, obviously some guys will have different tactics depending whether he's a southpaw or orthodox, if he's a fighter, if he's a counter puncher, depending on that. But in general, it's about us. We're building up our own belief. We're feeding ourselves with belief. You know, and then we have our own tactics for that fight. And what is our best fight? Where do we get our best scores from? Is there a right hand? Is there a left hand? So we focus really on that and getting a good start. 80% of boxers, amateur boxers, that win the first round, win the contest. So it's important to be at the lead or very close to it after the first round.
Come out strong. The whole experience of training, you know, you were talking to me about lunch about sort of building up self-esteem. You have to believe in yourself. And I know that you are a huge perfectionist and you're somebody who makes great demands on yourself. What kind of demands do you make on your boxers? I mean, do you put constraints around diet, socializing, how many hours sleep they get at night? I mean, what kind of a commitment are you expecting?
Well, it's 100%. There's no shortcuts in this game. You know, there is times where they can do a bit of socialising, but it's when we're in training, there's no socialising. Just among ourselves maybe, but there's no drinking. Alcohol is banned from the team. Even when we're away after competitions, no drink. And then if they want time, when they have a break at home, if they want to get a few drinks, they can have that. And that's up to themselves, but outside of that there is none. Their commitment is total. And you know, they're analysed at every competition. They come back to get the feedback from that. They go down to the gym floor and they're working on, you know, what the measures that they've had against the best in the world. They're benchmarked against the best in the world, what their stats are. So they're going back down trying to increase that, whether it's their engine, whether it's technically, you know, whether it's mentally that they need to improve. So there's a total commitment, you know. There's no half measures, you know. You can't do it without being fully committed. You can't win Olympic medals without it.
I was told a story there over the weekend, now you can tell me whether this is true or not, about you taking a bunch of your guys to a tournament. I think it was in Ireland, was what I was told, but I believe it was Kenny Egan was supposed to fight two bouts and didn't. He refused to take the second one, and you kitted off and got in to fight the guy he was supposed to be fighting. Is this true?
Yeah, that was it was actually 2 years, a year before High Performance began. My first time as a coach, I got selected as a coach with the national team. I was thrilled. Not long having retired, well, I suppose I was in my 30s, mid to late 30s. And I picked to go away with this team to Poland to a training camp in a place called Wisła, which is the main river in Poland, but there's a village called Wisła. Anyway, we were there for 10 days. Polish were great with us. We had one fight. Kenny fought. I thought he took a bit of a dive in the fight. And then they were due to fight a couple of days later, and he didn't turn up. This is probably maybe one of the reasons why I got the job as well. I wrote a damning report about it, and they got suspended for 6 months.
Right.
Himself and another couple. I was absolutely gutted. I couldn't believe that the guys were going to represent the country and they would not do it. They didn't want to do it. They were out partying. They had a beer. You know, the ethos was about having a good time, and I was gutted. And I ended up togging out at that 38 years of age, I think it was, and hadn't fought for quite a few years, and to get in and fight the guy. But the coaches wouldn't let me, thankfully. And I remember the coach was with me, and I said to him, if I don't knock this guy out in the first round, throw in the towel, because I'm going to be banjaxed. Yeah, that was the start of our relationship, myself and Kenny. And you know, you can imagine when we started High Performance and I got the head coach and he was on the team, he would have been very nervous of me, or very.
Yeah.
But that was.
But your relationship healed though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. He's quite a talented guy.
Great guy, absolutely great guy, a lovely man, lovely person, and very, very talented. Probably should have won the gold medal in Beijing, but he fought a China man there. It was difficult to get a decision against China, but Yeah, he's been her, for 10 years, he's been her flagship. He's won more medals than any boxer we ever had.
But he has offered his challenges to yourself, I mean, to handle and manage and keep his personality going in the direction it needs to
Yeah,
go.
we've had many a long walk in the rain and around darkened parks to try and talk him around. And thankfully, he's on the right road now. He's 3 years now since he's taken a drink, and he's training away. He's enjoying his sport, and probably getting his last hurrah this year. He wants to try and reclaim his title and hold the outright record of having 11 senior titles in February. It's only in a couple of weeks away.
Talk to me about Katie Taylor for a moment. We kind of touched on her there a few moments ago. Women's boxing is a relatively new phenomenon. There would have been Muhammad Ali's daughter probably would have made it quite well known on the international circuit, but in terms of Ireland, it seems to have come out of nowhere in the last few years. And Katie is obviously certainly the poster child for it. When did you meet her first?
As a young girl, her father was a similar age, and her father would have boxed when I was boxing. He didn't. He boxed intermediate level and won the intermediate championships in 1986. So we didn't know her father and that. And then, as a young girl, she was travelling around with her dad, going to the shows and putting on little exhibitions and what have you. When there was no female boxing in the world. And then 10 years ago, she came to the programme, and boxing. And in fairness to the Sports Council, Gary Keegan was the director then, and he made a case for her with the Sports Council, and they decided to fund her in an equal par with the boys.
I mean, that must have been quite revolutionary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And seen as quite a gamble.
And even just to have her in the squad, because there wasn't much female boxing at that time. And look, she's repaid it, 10 times over. She's been 4 times world champion, which only happens every 2 years, and she's been 5 times European champion, which only happens. That's a 10-year dominance of female sport, and probably only getting the recognition now because she's won an Olympic gold medal. And the reason why boxing was in the Olympics was because of her as well.
Really?
In 2007, the World Championships were in Chicago, and they put on a couple of female contests to the world body to have a look at them, and she was outstanding. And they were talking about putting it into Rio, but once they saw the standard that Katie was at, they said they would put it into London. So that's the reason why it was there.
Was it hard to get bouts for her originally in the early days?
Yeah, in Ireland there was very few. Yeah, so she's part. That's why she trains with us, the men, all the time. Paddy Barnes, Michael Conlon, John Joe Nevin. She's one of their best sparring partners, and they're her best sparring partners.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. But around the world, Sweden would have been there. I boxed in 1996 in Sweden, and they had female boxing. And Canada, there were some nations that were well ahead of everybody else. But now it's an Olympic sport now, and a female gold medal is as good as a male gold medal.
For sure, for sure. What makes her so good?
Her attention to detail, and she doesn't take any shortcuts. And if I could get the boxing, the men team, to live quarter of the life that Katie Taylor lived, we'd have a lot more gold medals. She lives such a life, and her dedication, and as I say, that continuous improvement mindset is phenomenal with her, and she never lays back on her laurels, and every time she meets the opponent, even if she's met them before, she treats them as a new opponent. So she's trying to reinvent herself all the time and continuously improve,
I mean, when you're working with somebody like her who is at sort of the pinnacle of their career, and as you said, you're trying to move forward, and she's better now than she was at the Olympics. Is it very difficult because they're getting praise from all sides, the ego is being fed everywhere they go? How do you manage that? Yeah,
that is a difficult piece. People keep telling you you're brilliant and you're beautiful. You're going to end up believing it at some stage. So, it's boxing is very, very. It's a very simple way of doing it. Just put her into the ring with somebody, and that brings you back down to earth pretty quick. Someone of a good standard, or someone about a weight above you, can make a big difference. So that grounds you pretty quick.
Right.
You know yourself when you get in the ring. If you're not playing the game, if you're not in shape, you're not long. Within a minute, you'll find out.
I know that there's been great temptation for her to go to the professional circuit and to go that route, and thankfully she's chosen not to do that. But I mean, that temptation is always there. I mean, you've stayed very, very firm with amateur boxing yourself. What's the difference in the ethos between the two?
Well, one of them is money driven, and the other one isn't. It's for us. It's about the Olympic Games. You know, at the end of every 4 years, there's Olympic Games, and Katie made a hard decision. It was easy for her to go professional, and within 10 fights, she would be world professional champion. As you know, there isn't that many women out there, and any of the ones that are professional, she already beaten them as an amateur. So she has made a hard choice. She wants to stay on, go to Rio, and do it again. And by that time, she will be 30, and it's going to be very, very difficult for her. So she's facing up to the biggest challenge of all, and didn't run away from it and went professional. So the ethos in the professional game is all about, you know, it's like dog eat dog. You really just, you're a piece of meat. You know, we are, you know, person first, performer second. We're developing the people and developing the person.
Yet there is all of that kind of glamour attached to the professional circuit. I mean, there's fights in Vegas and, you know, all of the big cars and the rap artists and all that kind of stuff that tend to kind of gravitate around that. But I suppose with Katie's, maybe with her faith, maybe she isn't as attracted to that. Yeah,
and again, that would have, you know, would have guided her to stay amateur as well, because of there's some skullduggery goes on with the professional game as well, you know, so she wouldn't be into that, it wouldn't be part of her ethos. And also, there isn't that many that you see those bright lights in Vegas, and you know, there's a lot of guys, there's thousands of guys underneath all them making nothing. Our amateurs are better looked after than a lot of professionals, with a whole support network around them, services that they can link into if they need them. Whereas if they're professional, you got to go and pay for all that. And inevitably, if you have to pay for it, they don't pay for it. You know, they take the shortcuts. But yeah, a lot of our guys we look after a lot better than a lot of professionals. That's why we've held on to them. For this 10 years, we've held on to most of our team. We've only lost the odd one.
One of the things that boxing has done in Ireland has, I suppose, created pathways of communication and acceptance for the travelling community. I know when I was in school and we talked about the CBS Boxing Club, and an awful lot of guys from the travelling community would have gone in there. Do you think that boxing is a great way of building bridges between communities?
Well, absolutely. You know, we would have all walks of life within the sport. You know, we've coloured, we've white, we've travelled, we've settled. You know, we've Catholic, we've Protestants, we've you know, Muslim, we've all sorts. And we all respect each other and we all work with each other and we all get on great. So it breaks down a hell of a lot of barriers because you're respected for what you can do in the ring and who you are.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, there is no stigma attached. I think a lot of people maybe, you know, initially boxing would have came from working class background.
I was reading about one of the first title fights there last week, that it was set up by some duke or other and some lord or other, and the match was not between them, but between the duke's butler and the lord's butcher or something like that they got their, you know, sort of... Well,
the rules, you know, it was gentry in England that formed the boxing, you know, the Marcus de Queensberry rules, you know, came from gentry. But inevitably it was the working class that really, you know, were very, very good at it maybe, and they ended up, it became a big sport within the working class. And so there's no stigma attached to boxing, and you're respected for who you are and what you can do.
And of course boxing teaches respect as well. I mean, you're never going to respect more, I suppose, than somebody who's going to be coming
respect,
in with
discipline, all the things that you want a young man to have these days are taught within the sport. Obedience, you know, it's a great game. You know, if you never went on to be a champion, the things you learn about yourself in the ring and training and preparing for it, it will stand you in good stead for years to come.
When I think of a boxing gym, I tend to think of, you know, a fairly kind of a scruffy, kind of wrinkled looking place with a very, very old used equipment. Are you guys kind of now working in very much the high-tech era?
Yeah, look, you know, there is some still like that. Yeah, we've had some investment around the country, and some gyms have got a lot better. You know, where we are at the moment, we've outgrown it. In the national stadium, we need to get better. You know, I would like to bring in national teams here. We travel quite a bit. We don't have the facilities. The ones in Dublin, we've outgrown them. It's a bit worn. We need a better facility with on-site campus for living, accommodation, food, all that sort of stuff. That is similar to what we visit when we go to France, Germany, Russia. You know, unfortunately, we don't have that investment. It wouldn't take much to have it. But at the moment, we have a team down in Dungarvan the Russian under-18 team are here training with the Irish under-18 team for 2 weeks in Dungarvan.
So we're attracting some people to come in and
Yeah,
train
they want,
with us.
all of them want to come, but sometimes we don't have facilities. Dungarvan have a new box club, it's a fine job, but where we are in the National Centre, it doesn't have. We have to stay a good bit away, and accommodation and travelling in and out. It's not conducive to world-class performance,
Yeah. We were chatting over lunch about Darren Sutherland, kind of one of the stories that didn't necessarily end well in terms of Irish boxing. Just talk to me a little bit about him, because I know you were very involved with him.
Yeah, look, he was a great guy. He was the only guy of the team I would have had to text every day to make sure he was okay. He had a bit of reinsurance, tremendous athlete. I think he would have made a world professional champion. He was more suited to that than he was the amateur game. Great guy, he got isolated. He was on his own in an apartment over in London. Somebody threatened him, sort of bullied him a piece, and it just backfired on him, and threatened him that they were going to finish his career and destroy him and send him back home to Ireland, in shame. But and that really turned him.
Yeah, and he ended up committing suicide,
yeah.
Unfortunately. That side of things is one that you wouldn't maybe necessarily expect in boxing, the kind of bullying or that sort of, you imagine the camaraderie rather than that side of it. I mean, is that something that you as a coach need to be very wary of? You've got a bunch of young lads and a couple of girls maybe in together,
Yeah, look, it happens in all walks of life, in all
Yeah.
sports, I suppose, yeah, but in general, the guys, our lads wouldn't, but I suppose at a younger age, I'm dealing with seniors most of the time.
Yeah.
So they're all adults at that stage and well able to give it as well as take it,
Sure.
But I suppose down the younger age groups, I suppose there's bits and pieces of that going on. But
Yeah. I mean, with somebody like Darren, I mean, you've got a very vulnerable person who's kind of coming in and is, quite young, and they're coming into your care, for want of a better word. I mean, you've spoken about your own coach as being like a father to you, and you very much, I've seen you with people like Kenny Egan, and you become a father figure to them. I mean, is that a responsibility that you're very aware of?
Yeah, obviously, you do become, because they listen to whatever you say that they will do, they're looking for help, and you're there with them, and you have to be that parent, loving parent type, and arm around the shoulder, and to get the best out of them, They have to respect you as you respect them, and for me, it's how I work. I'm a very personable guy, and I work closely with individuals.
Sure. You're working now towards the next Olympics. As you say, you work between Olympics, really. What are the steps that you're going to be taking to bring you to that point?
Well, at the moment, I'm doing a review of the whole system.
What does that involve?
Well, the coaching, the physical piece, the technical piece, the psychological piece, all of it. We're reviewing the whole process, reviewing the environment that we're in, the culture that we've had, and the culture that we're going to need going to Rio. So I'm reviewing the whole programme. Hopefully by the end of this year we'll have that review done and we'll kick on for Rio. Other than that, we've got the European Championships and the World Championships at senior level this year. So we're preparing for that. National Championships are on next week. After that we get the team back, and then we start on the road to Rio, but we're heading to Minsk first and then to Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan? What's happening in Kazakhstan?
Barata's over there. We're going
Well, obviously Barata's over there. But he's going to be helping out with the training.
The World Championships are in Astana this year. So we're going
So how much time do you spend travelling?
about 4 months of the year I'm outside the country. And then I'm
did
in
that
Dublin.
take you a long time to kind of acclimatise yourself to?
Yeah, people say you go to these exotic places, but some are not that exotic, And especially if you're going to Eastern Europe, it might sound good, Vladivostok, but it usually keeps. But,
Right.
so I'm going there for the tournament. I'm going there for the challenge of, we're going to compete against the best nations. I'm not there for a holiday. I don't see a whole lot of the place even.
Yeah.
Only between training centres and actually the competition, the venue. So that's what I'm there for. We're there for the challenge. We've done a block of training. We're trying to prepare and get ourselves some way along the ladder to Rio, and we go and test ourselves. Hopefully it works out. If it doesn't work out, then we come back and take it apart and get it ready for the next day.
What about yourself? You're, somebody who is now at the peak of their career. You're doing. You say that you feel like you've died and gone to heaven. This is the job you've always wanted to do. Mean you still get in there and work out yourself every day?
No. I'm too old for that, man. I got more sense than that. No. I do a bit of training, obviously. If you're doing, I do pad work with the team, so
Yeah.
if you're doing that for an hour every day, it's pretty strenuous, you know. And yeah, I keep myself in reasonable shape. But
What do you do when you're not
I go to watch
training?
GA. I go to watch hurling and football matches.
Yeah.
I have a passion for GA, so I watch those. Yeah, walks, runs. I do a bit of running. Yeah, just about it. I try not to do boxing because I feel sick when I start to punch a bag, and I say, "Oh, jeez, I'm so bad." I feel so bad.
Really?
My technique, and then their timing and their distance. So I just give up.
So you criticise
punching
yourself
the bag.
all the
It's
time.
too self-critical. So I do something different than boxing. Do a bit of cross training or do a bit of running or something. I'm happy enough doing that.
Okay, let's. Can we have the house lights up, please? Let's go to some questions from the audience.
We wake everybody up.
Yes.
Didn't put you to sleep.
Those of you that are texting, put your phones away now. Okay, Steve. Where's Stephen? Yeah, down here. Right, Stephen has a question.
Billy, you've obviously trained at very successful level, and you've very high level. You're very successful. Is there any aspects that you have that you think could be introduced to other sports?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that are very, very transferable across a range of sports. The principles are very similar, depending on what you're doing. Stephen, just a little bit on Stephen. Stephen's father and myself grew up a couple of doors from each other in Wexford town, actually. And he was the better runner. Stephen's father was a better runner because he never boxed. He used to keep running away from me. But yeah, a lot of us are very transferable. The principles are the same in all sports, you know. And I think there's a big team ethos among the boxing team, and yet we're a team of individuals. So I think people on GA teams and soccer teams need to look at, you are a team, but you're a team of individuals, and need to look at the individual needs and what makes them work within that team. So I think that's a key point that I would use if I was training any of those teams.
How do you build a team?
Again, it's a bit of the culture piece, but we sit down and we decide among ourselves what our principles are, what our qualities should we have, what behaviours we should have. And we build it because it has to be not me enforcing that on, it has to come from within the group. And then the peers within the group then decide on if somebody steps outside of the breach and discipline. So we have that among the team.
Self-regulation.
Self-regulation, and there's a great team ethos there. And as I said, that piece about having fun, we have a great time. You saw Paddy Barnes having jokes with Marty Morrissey so they were trying to catch him and Michael Conlon were all trying to catch him every time they were on the TV, you know. So just having that fun and banter, you know, and a good crack, it builds good camaraderie and good relationships.
Makes a difference. Okay, who's next? No other questions?
For athletes to deal with the pressure from the media?
It can be. It depends on the athlete, but we regulated, you know, the last couple of Olympic Games. Excuse me. In fairness to the media, you know, they do need some piece from the athletes, and you know they're going to write about them. So what we did, we arranged a media day. Going to the Olympics, we arranged a media day. So we brought him in, gave him a couple of hours with the whole team, and told him then that was like 3 or 4 weeks before the games. And we got out of the country then. We told them that the boys will not speak anymore until after the fight. And then when the fight, they will speak no more until after the next fight. So, you know, any other thing then fed through me, or the team manager. So that's how we managed that piece. So we started, not a blanket ban, but the boys know not to speak to them unless they come through myself. And we try to control it because they're not, they could run away with itself, you know. But the pressure is expectations on the team going to the Olympics were, everybody expected us to win medals. You know, we had come back, we went to Beijing sort of under the radar, and we came back with 3 medals. And then going to London, everyone expected us to win the medals. They expected Katie Taylor to win the gold medal. That was massive. And for me then, for that team to perform under those expectations and managing the expectation around them. And again, it all revolves around bringing it back to basics and bringing it back to our performance. what is our best performance, how do we get our best performance, and delivering our best performance, no matter what the occasion, no matter who you're in against, no matter what arena it was. The ring is the same size no matter what part of the world we're in. And there's 5 judges around the same and 1 referee. So that's why we just focus on that.
I have another question there for you, Billy. You were saying about learning about other training camps when they're coming down. Does this new World Series of boxing help promote the amateur game as them boxers coming over and learning, say, training camps in the States? Does it help you as a coach?
It hasn't really, in the sense that 'cause this year we held on to the team and they only flew out to the fights. But previously they went out to different nations and trained with them. And I found when they came back from, they had lost a lot of the stuff that we're telling them and the type of style that we want them to deliver. So it didn't work out well for us. But this year it has worked out well. The boys have done well and they're still in training with us. And training on our ethos and what we think is what gives us best performance.
Do you think that when they go off to the World Series of boxing, does that help change their mind whether to stay amateur or go professional?
Well, I think it's helped them in the sense that they're getting a few quid for it. So it's helping them stay. They can go and do this for a few months of the year and then come back to the amateur game. So they're happy enough with it, I think, at the moment anyway. So we haven't lost anything out of it yet. So they're happy to stay with us.
What do you think of the mixed martial arts? It's becoming extremely popular, and in terms of, you were saying that boxing tends to attract a working class kind of grouping, whereas mixed martial arts tends to kind of cross that class divide. You have businessmen now going out looking to do cage fighting at the weekends, which is strange, if quite entertaining sometimes. What's your view of it?
Yeah, look, it's very, very tough. It's a tough game. It's for me, because I have this I would say Olympic style boxing ethos where it's a lot revolves around skill and hit and not being hit. To see 2 guys in a cage or and if one fella's on the ground, the other fella hitting him is opposite to the rules that I've been brought up with, and I wouldn't. It's the sort of stuff you see on a Saturday night outside the pub sometimes, and I wouldn't be too fully supportive of it. But if that's what floats your boat, it is a tough game. You've got to be very, very physically strong and mentally very, very strong to put up with that.
Have any of your guys ever expressed any interest in wanting to get involved in it, or have you had anyone coming out of it to your stable?
No, none of. We had a guy from Sweden come over for some sparring. All right, that was into that, a big, massive guy, but our boys boxed the head off him.
Okay.
Well, if you got a hold of him and you can get him down, he would. But he wanted to brush up on his boxing skills. But
yeah.
For me, a boxer, the technique and skill of that would outweigh what they do. But to get a hold of you and get you on the ground, you're in trouble.
Yeah, sure. Another thing that I often wondered about, you're in the middle of a match, and let's just say that one of your group is not faring so well, and they come into the corner. Okay, and you've got what? A minute?
Probably, yeah. It says a minute, but you're talking about, again, just sit down and get a drop of water in probably about 40 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you see on the TV there seems to be constant dialogue going on. You're talking to them. I mean, what are you saying at that point? What does the dialogue involve?
It's very, very clear. There's only 1 or 2 things you're going to be able to take in at that time. Remember, you're coming back and your heart rate is probably 200 beats a minute. Okay, you're trying to bring that down to about 140, 150. Try and get them a bit of recovery before they go back out. You're trying to calm them down. You're trying to make them look like you're calm and that you know what you're talking about, and give them 1 or 2 clear instructions that will either continue them to be successful or to turn it around completely. So that's what it's about. It's about what he needs to do to continue winning or to change it and turn it into a win.
Okay. Have you ever been in the ring and just had one of those terrible experiences? Have you ever been frightened in the ring?
No, I got plenty of hidings, all right, but I never I was never frightened. Like I was beaten by guys, all right. No, I never really frightened, never really hurt.
Yeah.
Hit quite a bit, but never hurt that much.
And would you consider that lucky in a boxing career like yours, or is that sort of?
I don't know. I've been 10 years full time at it with a team, and there's nobody's been hurt. So I wouldn't consider being lucky. I think if you're prepared properly, you're less likely to get hurt.
Prepared and looked after properly.
Yeah,
as
looked
well.
after as well.
Any other questions?
As a coach, how would you deal with an athlete if they were feeling nervous before a match? Or if they weren't feeling as if they were fully up to it?
Well, everybody should feel nervous before a match. 'Cause that will help you perform to your best. A bit of what they call a flight or fight syndrome from the adrenaline. We just calm them. We try, as I said to you, make them believe that they're the best guy in the fight, and try and find out what's making us so nervous, But inevitably, it's better to be nervous because your reactions are heightened, your speed is heightened, and you usually deliver a better performance. If not, you're understimulated. But you can get overstimulated, which then ends up in being a negative. But in general, it's good to be nervous. Tell them it's okay. The other guy is going to be nervous as well.
Okay, anyone else?
Billy, as a man who's played GA at a high level, do you believe boxing and probably the other Olympic sports have lost out to GA? Is there GA players that you know that would have made boxers or Olympians in another field?
I'd say so, yeah. I know the team, funny enough, the team that I won an Leinster hurling medal with, 2 guys off that team went to the Olympic Games. I was one of them. The other guy was the cornerback. He was from your Ross, Andy Ronan. He ran the marathon in Barcelona. So I think it's an amazing feat that 2 guys off a Wexford hurling team went to the Olympic Games. So there's lots of that out there. There's a hell of a lot. I know Red Barry, who was a very good footballer. He'd been a fantastic athlete. He'd been a fantastic long distance runner. The engine that he has. So there's lots of guys out there that, yeah, definitely. We probably lose out. There's probably the 3 or 4 major sports when rugby, hurling, football, and soccer. Our best athletes probably go to that. But I find that the guys that played other sports and that were good at individual sports will eventually find their path. That way, Harrington and Padraig Gilney, is it? McGinley? Both of them played with Ballyboard and St. Edna's, and they found golf. They went, they were better at golf and went down that route, So I suppose, it's what they decided to do. At the end of the day, they've got to live with it that they've decided to go down that route,
Someone up top there? Yeah.
Hi, when you started coaching, what were the kind of main points you had? Like, what was your main ethos? Or could you give any advice to coaches in any way starting out? What would you feel is a good ethos? Not just in boxing.
Yeah, I think, I was very lucky in the sense I had come from having 10 years and being an Olympian, 10 years in international, and then having won 7 every senior titles, So that gave me got my foot in the door to have that bit of respect. But then I had to deliver. So going in there and having that strict discipline, having the knowledge of your sport, obviously, and being able to deliver quality sessions to stimulate your team, and then having a variety, being able to stimulate, because we go back and keep doing the same thing, you're going to get sick and fed up of it. So the stimulation, I think, having lots of fun around it. But when it comes to training time, there's a strict code of discipline around timings, around, the efforts that's put into it. So we line all our boys up before every training session. We tell them what's expected of them in today's training session. So that everybody's having a clear frame of mind as they go to warm up, what's expected of them, what they need to do. We're on time. We deliver a high quality session. Athletes, boxers, footballers, hurlers, like nothing more than a tough, hard, good quality session. They come out of it fulfilled then. So then you're on the right track then, to creating your own ethos, your own philosophy.
How do you enforce the timekeeping?
Sure,
The guys, you got some guy who's turning up every time
But he
comes.
doesn't do it
You
every
just
time.
don't let him in,
Go home.
really?
Come back when you decide to be on time. It works.
Very good. I hope you're listening. Anyone else?
Billy, was there ever a time when you would have doubted your own abilities as a coach? And if there was, how do you kind of get through that?
Question. I haven't really, It's not something to say maybe, but I haven't really, because I don't know, I just see things when I'm at ringside. I see things happening. I have the answer for it. I can see where the opening is. I can see. So in that area, I haven't. As regards training, we have the guys monitored. We know, and we get constant feedback from them how they are, whether we're doing the right thing or if we're overtraining them or undertraining them. So I haven't really. I've a good bit of self-belief. I think that came from my own days of boxing, and and I have a lot of really good people around me. It's not only me. There's a good support staff around me, quality people who I feed into and ask for advice. And I'm just lucky that I figurehead and lead a team. But there's a great quality team that we've all been together 10 years. We've all made mistakes, but we've all learned, and we built a system now that's delivered all these medals.
Also, Billy, though, you've had you've had time both to work on your own psychology and also have people work with you on your psychology. I mean, you spoke very eloquently there about 17 years recovering from your Olympic experience. You've had to bolster your own belief in yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Everybody's going to take hits, and tough body shots. You got to rise above it. Face a challenge. I said a challenge again for Rio, as I said, 5-1. People look at this and say, "That's impossible." It's not impossible. I don't believe it's impossible. I think we can do it. I think we have enough talent in the country, and with everybody buying into it, I think we could achieve that. So, set the bar high and enjoy the climb.
Who's next? Anyone else up top?
You were saying there, set the bar high. At an early age, you're saying when you were playing soccer and football hurling at a very high level, and then decided that the teammates that you got to that level with you still weren't setting their bar high. Where did that come from for you to be so motivated to move to the best from early age?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I don't know. I think I struggled when I started boxing when I was 7, right? And the other sports. But I look at my boxing career, I didn't win. I won a Leinster title when I was 12. But I was good at it, right? I was good at it as a young age, but I just didn't get a break. I wasn't lucky. And then when I became 14, I won my Irish title. And from then, once that happened to me, for the next 12 years, I was in the final every year. It's 15 years, next 15 years, and I won 12 of them. I lost 3 Irish finals. One to Michael Crute and another one to Damian Denny, twice to Damian Denny. So at senior level. So once I found the secret of winning that title, I didn't want to let it go. It took me that long to get there. When I got it, I didn't want to let it go. So I continuously wanted the drive to win, to be successful. I don't know where it came from, because my dad wasn't particularly he was a handy hurler and footballer, didn't box. My mother, she might have boxed him, but she didn't a few times. But so she was, even though my aunt was an All-Ireland Camogie medal winner. So I don't know, I just had this drive. I don't know whether it's the street I came from, and it was a working class area. Funny enough to call it a working class area, and there's probably 100 houses. I think my dad was the only one working in it. He was a butcher in Clover Meats, but at the time. So I don't know, I had it within me, and I had a bit of success, and I just wanted that. I had a hunger for it to be as good as I could be. I'm sorry that we didn't have the structures that we have now when I was around. I think I'd had a lot more success,
You've had a funny old relationship with Michael Carruth, haven't you? Yourself and him have had your ups and downs.
We're good mates. We were best mates. For 5 years we travelled together, went to Olympics together. We were roommates for the 5 years. And funnily then, I gave up sort of in 89, 88, after I came back from the Olympics. And Christine, my wife, was here. She was pregnant, and I needed a job. And then I decided then a couple of weeks before the National Championships in 89, I was in the club coaching and doing a bit of training and sparring a few guys. And I went into the championship and won them at the weight above. And I went to the top 8 at the World Championships. I went in the following year, won them again. The year. So then we're coming close to the Olympics again. So I said, look, if I'm going to compete at the Olympic Games, I need to be at the weight I should be at. I should be a welterweight. I was boxing light middleweight at this time, because I was too small for light middle. And sure, Carruth moved up a weight. I came down a weight. And the current champion at welterweight, Eddie Fisher from Belfast, he was in the same weight division. 3 champions in the one weight. So the draw, they couldn't seed anybody. So the draw, then I drew Crewe the first fight, and I beat him in 1981. So then 92, they seeded us. We met in the final, and they beat me by a point, and they go to Barcelona and win the gold medal. But we're still good mates. The bastard. But actually, the funny thing, last week my daughter was in Naas at the weekend visiting a friend of hers, a schoolmate, for a birthday party, and her car broke down. So I'm here, how am I going to get her home? I should ring it in. Don't you ring it when they want something, of course. Can't get the car home, couldn't get it started. I said, Jesus, sure, Mick lives in Naas. Michael Crewe lives in Naas. Like a shot, he was over, had a mechanic look at it, car is banjaxed. He drove from Naas, brought her to my house, 1 o'clock in the morning. Said, see you, good luck. If my daughter will be down in Wexford someday, she'll be stuck. I expect you to bring her back. So fair play, he's a good mate.
Better
So.
make sure you have the car tuned up then. One last question? No? Okay, well I have the last question. Oh, do we have one down here? Yeah?
In terms of Ireland taking the right steps in relation to progress in boxing or performance boxing, how important was it to have the Cubans come over here when they did, and to have their coaching expertise and so on? Was that a pivotal point for Irish boxing?
Yeah, in fairness, it's a valid question. Nicholas came 1987, he would have came. And I would have been, for 5 years that he was here, I was captain of the team. So, but he was one man, he was one man, he was very good at what he did. But originally the Russians taught the Cubans. So the system was in Russia. Russians had been the best. It's just that the Cubans had the pool of talent where all the fast twitch athletes are in the Caribbean. So, yeah, he would have been instrumental, but I think the key thing was this is an Irish-led program. We've a Georgian coach who I think is far away, Nicholas. He's a top-class technical coach, but he doesn't know our culture. And there's no point in imposing a Georgian culture, a Russian culture, a German or a French culture on an Irish population. So we turned it into an Irish culture. And I think that was the key thing to it, having knowing the Irish background and the psyche of our boxers was key to that. But the skills and the talent development is in history. Come from the Soviet Union, and we follow some of those principles. But we have our own little system, which has an Irish culture, which is the important thing. So no matter if you're in Waterford, there's no point in me bringing down a Wexford culture to Israel. Or going to Wexford with a Waterford culture and trying to give us blahs and butters.
Okay, Billy, 2 questions for you before we finish up. Number 1, who's the best boxer in the world right now?
Wow, good question. Katie Taylor is the best female boxer in the world.
Okay.
Okay. The best male boxer was I tell you who it would have been if he'd have done what he was told in the final. John Niven would have got the best boxer in the Olympic Games, amateur. Because his performances, he beat the world number 1 the night before the final. He was absolutely outstanding, but some of the ego piece got to him as well, and thought he had won the final the night before. And a funny thing, and he knows I spoke about this before, so it's no secret. His mother would be very superstitious from a travelling background, so he was very superstitious. And his mother rang him up in the morning of the final and said to him, John Joe, I had a dream last night. You didn't win the final.
Oh.
You won the silver medal. What happened? He won the silver medal. So whatever about dreaming is and telling him is, why does he tell him?
You can always take her onto the team.
Yeah, look,
she can clue you off.
Floyd Mayweather, Pacquiao got beaten there recently. Got a hell of a right hand walked onto one. They've been flagships for the professional game. Okay, Pacquiao, I was really impressed with. He's come up through so many weight divisions. A small guy from Philippines. He's excellent. Technically, he's very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Second question. What's your favourite Rocky movie?
Do you know what? There's a funny one. The first Rocky movie, I saw it here in Waterford. I was 16, I was down in Anco, and the crowd was out of the class, went down to, it was down near the square there.
I know the one you're talking about.
Picture house going up the hill, up towards Ballybreakin is up.
Up there, yeah.
Is that picture house still there?
No, it's closed now.
Yeah. Up near the guards barracks.
That's right, yeah.
I went there to watch Rocky, and I remember at the end of it, get up! Remember he was down, So that was the best one for me.
The first one. Well, that's the one that won the Oscars, so it's a good one. Billy, everyone that I spoke to about you when I knew that you were going to come here to very kindly participate in the lecture series, the one word that kept coming up again and again and again when people described you was gentle. You're a gentle person, which I think is a great. It's a great compliment, I think. So, Billy Walsh, everybody.
Thanks,